Welcome into the Big Little Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Andrew Greig. We are close to the finals. We thought we were going to have the finals matchup set last night, but the Pacers were not able to close out the Knicks. They lost 94 to 111, and now the series goes back to Indiana, right?
Yep.
So was there something that the Knicks figured out, or was this just one game off or one game away from the inevitable?
No, I think it's probably 1 or 2 games away from the inevitable. I don't think that the Knicks are going to be able to come back 3-1, especially because the Pacers, although they essentially got blown out in this game, everybody had a terrible game from the Pacers' perspective. Tyrese Halliburton didn't really show up the way he needed to after his triple-double performance. He doesn't even get to double figures in this game. And then on the opposite side, the players that you need to step up for the Knicks did. Jalen Brunson had a good game. Karl-Anthony Towns had a good game. And then I really we haven't talked about it since it happened, but I really like the insertion of Mitchell Robinson into the starting lineup. He's been giving them great stuff off the bench the whole time. And Josh Hart gets to be more of an offensive threat when he's not on the floor with 4 other people who also need the ball in their hands. So I think that he's becoming more he can step into more of a natural role coming off the bench, and is just always an energy guy. So it gives a little bit just more of an emphasis on their bench, which they haven't had in the past, especially not in these playoffs or maybe all season long.
Yeah, no, definitely. They haven't had it all season long, it feels like. I'm glad that they finally were able, and it sucks that it took this long for them to actually give their bench a shot or to really try to play with some of the lineups. But that seems to, if there's one thing that would keep this Knicks team alive through game 6 and potentially winning game 7, it would be the fact that they made this move to give their bench just a couple more minutes here, or more minutes rather than 0. Just being able to pull back some of the minutes of some of their starters, I think, is just generally helpful, especially when they're out there on defense and everything like that. I think it really helps those guys. And then, as you mentioned, giving Mitchell Robinson that starting slot, I think has been really helpful. You mentioned this was an off game for the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah. Well, to that
I didn't know if that was actually, honestly, just being straight up, I didn't know if you said that before or if you had said that in your opening thing, but I wanted to get to how poorly or how off this team was as well last night.
No, yeah. I mean, I mentioned the opening thing, but yeah, a lot of their key players played at least shot from the field pretty terribly. I mean, in their starting lineup, 3 of their players shot a combined 5 for 15 and then 6 for 23 between Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, and Tyrese Halliburton. And Aaron Nesmith has kind of grown up in the series and throughout the course of this playoffs into one of he's always been a really good perimeter defender, but one of the better players on this team. He only had 3 points in this game. And then Tyrese Halliburton, there's been talks about him becoming a superstar. And in my opinion, this is what separates superstars from just star players or really good players. The fact that you can have 8 points in playoff games, and he's had single digits in playoff games. He had 9 points in the Cleveland Cavaliers series, and I think one of the closeout games as well. If you're not getting superstar level hate, you're not a superstar. If this happens to LeBron in the playoffs, even right now, even the fact that he's 40 plus, he's not. If he's dropping 9 in a playoff game or 8 in a playoff game, people are going to rip into him for it. If Anthony Edwards does this, if a lot of other quote unquote stars do this, if Nikola Jokic had an 8-point game and closed that game in the playoffs, everybody would be ripping into him. I think that's what separates superstars from just really good players and star players. The fact that he can be in the minus 23, shoot for 2 for 7, and only have 8 points, and I think that's the separator for me, at least in my opinion.
So okay, yeah, I'll get to the Pacers team first. They were off last night, and they didn't have their main guy working, and a couple of different players had some off shooting nights. It is what it is. We'll see if they can close it out here in game 6. I think that they still will be able to. The Tyrese Halliburton thing is interesting because we talked about this the last time we were on, and I felt like you made a distinction with the superstar to the star player, and it had more to do with the notoriety, who would know who, rather than and the criticism certainly comes with it. But I feel like there was an extra group of stars like Ant, SGA, Jokic, that are very known. Probably I would say bordering the superstar level. Jokic, I think, would be a superstar, in all honesty. I mean, not the big box office draw that you might see from a casual, but he's anywhere in between that, right? But I feel like you lump those guys together, but in the previous video when we talked about it, you drew a line, and I feel like if we lump them together, I do think Tyrese Halliburton is on that, is in that realm, and you can add Luka and other players like that in it too.
I I personally just don't think so. I mean, I think I'm doing that because there is only a small group of people that like the example that I gave was that like your grandma would know if like you just said the name on like the if you said LeBron's name or Kevin Durant's name, they'd probably like people who don't watch basketball. It's like kind of that category that exceeds that, but that is like just too small of a group of player. I think that the fact that like actual individual performances in basketball needs to like fit into it a little bit more. And I think just in general, in terms of like best basketball players on the planet, maybe Superstar should encapsulate like that list of names I talked about, and then like the top 6 or 7 basketball players in the world. And I don't think that title should be like handed out to like almost anybody else. And I don't think Tyrese Halliburton falls in that category like whatsoever at this point. I mean,
Halliburton
like
is what, like not top 10 or top 15? Or
I
is he right in the middle of 10 and 15?
I don't have like a list in front of me, but I definitely don't think he's top 10.
I think he's bordering on it. He's getting really close to it. Like, I understand like where you're coming from with the criticism part, but I think that that's about to turn really quickly. I think we saw it with Anthony Edwards like this year a little bit, where he made a a really solid run last year and got to the conference finals and kind of sputtered out, and then now this year he had a lot more like lesser playoff games or playoff performances than we would have expected. Team kind of finished in the same realm. I think he's getting more criticism. I just think that it just hasn't turned just yet, just because of like the age for Tyrese Halliburton. But I definitely think he's got to be right around there, because like this team is one game away from the NBA Finals. Like that
What do you mean?
is.
What do you mean the age? Aren't they like pretty close to similar in age? And like, didn't Tyrese Halliburton make the conference finals last year too, and kind of sputtered out?
Well, yeah, but I mean that was against the Boston Celtics, like an undisputably great team, and I would say like he is getting some level of hate right now. I mean, for some players, it just comes at different moments. Like Anthony Edwards, I feel like has been a staple, like for face of the league kind of conversations for a while. I mean, talking about Baby Mike, like comparing him to Kobe and Michael Jordan, like those comparisons came before the playoff run. So I feel like he's been kind of in that conversation. It's just about when you enter the conversation, like everybody just thought the Pacers team last year was a massive overachievement. It was kind of
Yeah,
like the Trae Young to the conference finals kind of thing.
I think the Timberwolves kind of fit into that category as well last year.
I mean, but
They weren't supposed
not
to
as
even
much though.
they weren't supposed to beat the Suns in that series.
I mean, they still had a really good team. Like I'd have to like look back exactly at like who was
They were
picking
not
who.
favored in the Suns matchup or
They
the
weren't
Nuggets
favored in
matchup.
any of the matchups this year. Like it doesn't even matter if you're favored or not necessarily. It's just about what kind of conversation you're in. They weren't favored in the Lakers series this year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That shows that like he can rise to like past the level of expectations. I think that Anthony Edwards run last year gets a little bit blurred, maybe because of the run that he's having this year and it not being as great. But man, that was like something like they were not supposed to get out of that Nuggets series, and even if they were supposed to beat that Suns team, the way they did it, they dominated that series like in and out. So I mean, I think we're losing perspective a little bit. I definitely think Tyrese Halliburton. I dogged on him a little bit, like a lot of it, but he made the third team All NBA. He's definitely one of the best players in the NBA, especially towards the second half of the season. The first half of the season, he wasn't very good, but in the second half, he stepped it up. He like got his team to where they needed to be at. But I just think that there is a level that he hasn't quite reached yet, where I understand that scoring isn't his main like go-to thing, but he can't he's not going to be the one to like take over a game individually, like take over a series individually and win them that series. I feel like the supporting cast has like helped a lot. In game one, you had the Aaron Nesmith game. Pascal Siakam has had a couple of good games throughout the series. I feel like he's one of the best players in the league, but he doesn't fit into that category for me just yet.
Yeah, it's just not his game, like you said, though. Like I will say this, like, and he does, I feel like sometimes need to be more aggressive, because we see him in late game scenarios try like take that final shot and be really aggressive. I hate to see a box score for a lot of like if I have like my number one player shoot only 7 shots in the game, I feel like that is like a disservice to the team, no matter what kind of game or style he plays. And like this game did, get out of hand a little bit, but like I hate to see that. I want him to be more aggressive, but like at the end of the day, that's not really his game. So like he deserves a certain amount of criticism, but I don't know if that is exactly what would be keeping him out of that kind of conversation where it's the top stars in the league, 10 to 15 range. Like, I mean, I think he's pretty solidified right around there. Obviously, I asked you about that. I don't have the list right off the top of my head. I have a point guard list that we're going to get to later, but like, I don't have that list right in front of me. I think the point about Anthony Edwards is interesting, you know, that you made, because like you're kind of swaying me a little bit, but still, like, I think the criticism's coming, and I think there are enough people saying this 8-point game like has been enough of a drop off from the previous game that it's certainly sparking some people to have a conversation about it.
There are some like pretty drastic swings with Halliburton's game too, because one game like he'll drop 30 and a triple double with no turnovers, and like even in the last series, like I've already mentioned this like 2 times already, but like in the last series versus the Cavs, like you like in closeout games, like you need your best player to like take more than a couple shots, have more than just a couple points, and he's had single digit points in 2 closeout games in the last 2 series. I just think that needs to improve. Like if a bad game for him is going to start being like 15 points and like 8 assists, like that is when you start getting to the level of this guy's different. But like that's like a Jokic bad game. But like I think those 2 players are in 2 different categories right now. I'm not lumping in Nikola Jokic with Tyrese Halliburton right now. Like they aren't in the same conversation to me.
Well, yeah, I think that there can be like you could be in the same ballpark, but not in the same conversation. Like I feel like nobody's in the conversation with Jokic right now. Like I would have to remove a lot of other players from that realm. I mean, maybe that's the case. I'm trying to go off of you got superstar, then the stars, and that's Jokic and like Giannis and other really, really good players that have had like playoff defining moments, maybe rings and stuff like that. And then I got like my other batch. And I feel like that other batch is in the same ballpark / conversation, kind of bleeds in. But I feel like Tyrese Halliburton's in that next like little class. If I'm going based off of like superstar, your definition, and then going down from that. The thing about the closeout games is interesting because I feel like it would be a little bit different if the closeout games were games 6 and 7, but it just so happens that the closeouts are in game 5. So it's just like, or games, 4 or 5. And it's like, it's less impactful. Like if it's earlier on in the series, like they've still taken care of everybody that they faced in the Eastern Conference. So I'm less inclined to really look at that stat and be concerned.
Yeah, and unless this goes south for the Pacers, and then it's like, I mean, I don't
This
think
could be
it's
a
gonna
completely
happen.
different conversation in 2 games for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think we've also lost the whole point of this segment about the Knicks staying alive. I mean, great game for the Knicks. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I mean, I just want to see a little bit more out of Tyrese Halliburton. Always, it feels like he's a little too passive at times, which is his game. But like you were saying, like 7 shots in a closeout game, and I understand it got out of hand like relatively quickly. But I mean, like you were saying, it feels just like a disservice when there's 4 or 5 other guys on the same team, players off the bench that are shooting more shots than your best player.
Yeah, we did lose the plot a little bit there, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I feel like that's a huge thing. I mean, if Tyrese Halliburton comes out in game 6 and balls out, I mean, I do think that's probably it for the Knicks. I think it takes him and unlocks everybody else. So, I mean, we'll see. Jalen Brunson's been amazing this series as well. So we'll have to just. And Karl-Anthony Towns been really good this series too. Okay, let's go to the Timberwolves offseason. They obviously got eliminated in the Western Conference Finals, and it's definitely something that they're going to have to look at. They're going to have to look at how this team is constructed, what exactly they want to do with some of the upcoming free agents that they have on the roster, the Rudy Gobert contract. How do they want to build around Anthony Edwards? 2 straight conference finals losses. Andrew, when you look at the offseason, what exactly are you thinking or looking at for the Timberwolves?
I mean, there isn't much they can do. I don't know what free agent names are really floating around the summer, but it feels like we haven't had a really big free agent class in a couple years now. And even if we did, the reason why they traded away Karl-Anthony Towns is because of the fact that they were going to be limited by the cap, not because that they thought Julius Randle was a significantly better player than him or would fit Anthony Edwards' play style a little bit better. Like the reason why they did that was like almost purely a money thing, and they don't have the money to really don't know exactly where the Timberwolves sit at this point, but when you're paying Julius Randle good money and you're paying Rudy Gobert good money and you have Anthony Edwards on your team, like you can't build around that team too much. And I think that they're right around their ceiling, which is the conference finals, especially with so many other good teams in the West right now. I think if Anthony Edwards has playoff series like he did like the year before this one, or if he just steps up his game to a different level, they have an opportunity to be one of the best teams in the NBA. But besides that, I don't know that there's that much they can do in the offseason to really change the fortune of this team.
So I think it's really interesting because I'm glad that you said like if Anthony Edwards kind of had more of that like, he wasn't as consistent as you would have liked him to be. I think that's apparent. He still played well, but like, to elevate that game, if he did, it felt like some of the pieces were kind of aligned, right? Like Julius Randle had an amazing playoff run. So it felt like things were aligned, but is that the ceiling? Can you rely on this team to be good next year at this same exact level? Some of the other players kind of dropped off. Like Naz Reid didn't have a very good conference finals whatsoever. And Rudy Gobert was kind of meh, especially after the first round. Like, can you rely on that? Probably not. So have you hit your ceiling? Probably. Unfortunately, they're probably going to have to pay up for Julius Randle if they want to keep this thing going. I mean, he may have played himself out of a deal, like a massive deal towards the end there in the conference finals, but that playoff run, and he averaged like 19 points per game this season, like that may have got him paid. And then, Naz Reid, I believe, has got a player option as well. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walker, going to figure out what you want to do with him. He's an unrestricted free agent. They got a couple guys still on their roster. Jaden McDaniels is under contract still, and Rob Dillingham as well on a rookie deal. Like, they've got some of the pieces. We'll see what they do with that 17 pick too. But I mean, I guess the only way out of this is repaying for Julius Randle, trying to run it back and seeing if that isn't your ceiling, even though it looks like it probably is.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, like you were saying though, if they can have it anywhere like replicable to Julius Randle playoff performance like they had this year, if you can just get a little bit more out of the former 4-time defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert, like on the offensive side of the ball. But Naz Reid, halfway through the Warriors series, it felt like he kind of just disappeared, which they didn't really need him in the Warriors series, but after that, he never found his game again, and it really showed once they eventually got eliminated by the Thunder. Dante DiVincenzo didn't have a very good playoffs at all either. So I mean, if any of these players step up, and then you also have Anthony Edwards, this team is formidable. Just looking at how good like the West can be for the future, especially with OKC only having more picks and feeling like they're getting better. It Could the conference finals be their ceiling? Definitely, but I'm hoping that we can see an Anthony Edwards just all-time run at some point, because seeing him in the finals and getting his ring and getting that like monkey off his, I feel like conversations are going to be starting to had, maybe not like even next year, but the year after that. Like, I think the Anthony Edwards conversation is going to have to be had, and if he can go on like a Giannis or a Jokic run where he just gets like that monkey off his back and gets a ring, that'd be really exciting to see, because I personally like Anthony Edwards as a player.
There's a worst case scenario here that I am very worried about, and I feel like it's kind of possible, and it can maybe happen in multiple ways, like in a sense where like it feels like Anthony Edwards doesn't have a lot of help, and this happens like very fast. Trading away Cat, I feel like you got Julius Randle in the building, and it was to see how far you could get if Julius Randle were to show up in the playoffs. And like this year it happened. Unfortunately, you just didn't get enough from some of the supporting cast, Anthony Edwards, but you ran into the Thunder. And it would have felt like so much better if that Thunder series was like 6 games or something like that, like a closer 6 games than like, a 5-game gentleman's sweep that, where your team like didn't even compete in game 5. Like, it would have felt a lot different. But now it just feels like, okay, you're going to run this back next year, pay Julius Randle a ton of money, hope that you're probably going to have to pay Naz Reid a ton of money as well. And you're going to hope that you can get that Anthony Edwards like bump that could potentially bring you to what? That swing the entire series against the Thunder? I'm very worried about that. Or you let Julius Randle walk, or he goes somewhere else in free agency. Something like that happens. I think that's a lot less likely. Like, I don't really know if I foresee a headline of him leaving, but then you've got cap space, but then you've got legitimately Anthony Edwards and Naz Reid potentially as like your top 2 offensive guys. That scares me, because that's like quick from like, dang, you just had Karl Anthony Towns and you got 3 more years of Rudy Gobert for worth $109 million. Like, I feel like this could go south really quick, or you could get stuck.
Yeah, and even with this current team, I mean, like this team wasn't playing very well until like halfway through the season too. So like this current team could take pretty drastic dips if everything isn't clicking for them offensively. And like their main staple over the last 2 years has really been defense. So I mean, if you lose like a Julius Randle and can't replace him with anything at least like half as valuable, this team could they were fighting off a play-in spot at the end of the season, or fighting for their like playoff hopes. So I mean, we'll see where this team goes from here.
Got a question, and maybe we should have made this our own segment. Maybe we'll do it if the Knicks get eliminated after Game 6 here. It felt like this was a win-win trade. Just looking at it in like for the future. Okay, both teams probably going out in the same spot the following year. Who do you think is in a better position? The Knicks with Karl-Anthony Towns or the Timberwolves with the looming Julius Randle free agency?
I personally like Anthony Edwards over Jalen Brunson. So,
Ooh,
and
yeah,
he's
well,
also, he's also younger. So I think that the Timberwolves in general could be in a better spot for the future. But yeah, and then how much do these expiring contracts on the Knicks get paid once they're up? Like OG Anunoby, has he done enough for a better contract somewhere else, or is Josh Hart like willing to take a more of a pay cut to stay? There's a lot of different factors with the Knicks. It feels like they're really centered around their like five guys, they're five starters, or Josh Hart now sits on the bench. So it's a really it's a toss up for the Knicks. But I think that with Anthony Edwards, you're like pretty solidified and like you're expected to make the playoffs no matter who's surrounding him for like the foreseeable future. And like knowing that front office, hopefully they'll surround him with like decent enough players where that's a possibility and they're not just going to be tanking for seasons on end. But I think the Knicks situation could get drastic if anyone decides that they want to take a leave, or they're going to like if they just deserve more money somewhere else.
And Jalen Brunson took that pay cut too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Karl-Anthony Towns playing well against Miles Turner and those boys, but he's not too far removed from those bad series, those bad first round series he used to have like in the early 2020s. I feel like he had some really bad ones. What was the thing that he said? The wine thing or whatever? Like it was after like a really bad game. It was like game 2 of first round. I forget who it was against, but he was like, I just got to drink some wine and decompress. I feel like those days are far behind, but like time wise, only a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean they were like just going out in the first round, like maybe like I forget if Jimmy Butler was on that team, but like that team that like got like gentleman swept or maybe even swept with that Jimmy Butler team, and then he like got traded away. That team is only maybe a couple years removed as well. So yeah, I think the narrative on Cat's playoff performances has changed like very drastically in the course of the last 2 years. But even
that
last
was
year,
like 2018,
2019, 2018.
Sixers.
No,
I don't know what I just said prior to Sixers there.
Yeah, So, well, I mean, who do you think is in the worst situation going forward?
So this might not be in the actual clip of us talking about it, but I think the Knicks. I just think simply because Karl-Anthony Towns is a better player, like, and looking at that trade through a vacuum, I think that the Timberwolves would have probably liked to have ran it back. I think they would have liked to run it back. And then I think that Rudy Gobert contract is like so killer because he could be like 34 and making like 35 to 40 million dollars or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like for the immediate future, especially given the fact that like the Knicks probably play in the weaker conference, especially with the Celtics going down, it's probably looks a little better for them. And I don't know which contracts of the Knicks are even like relatively close to expiring, but like I think just the fact that you have a 23-year-old Anthony Edwards who's getting hungrier by the year in the long run is probably going to be better off for because Jalen Brunson's like 27 now, so I think the fact that like
Only?
yeah, right. It feels like he could be even a little older. He was on that Villanova run like 2016.
Yeah, but he was like a older player when he came out. Hold up. I'm 28. Okay. He's going to turn 29 next year.
Yeah.
No, this year, next season.
Yeah. So I think that like for the extended future, probably the Timberwolves are in the better spot, but like in the immediate future, the Timberwolves aren't even supposed to make it this far. So
all right, a big thing at this point in the season is ranking the top point guards. We have 3 of potentially the top 10 point guards playing right now. So I created a list. Andrew, you can tear it apart. Let me know what you think. You have it right in front of you. I'm going to list out the names right now. At number 1, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP. Number 2, Luka. 3, Curry. 4, Halliburton. 5, Brunson. 6, Donovan Mitchell. 7, Cade Cunningham. 8, Trae Young. 9, Jamal Murray, 10, Ja Morant. And then as honorable mentions are other players that I really couldn't get a read on or think that they really deserve to be up there. Maybe the jury's still out on them. De'Aaron Fox and LaMelo Ball. I didn't really have a place for them.
Yeah, I would like to see Tyler Hero inserted into the back of that list, but that's okay.
That's okay. That one may have been a forgetful thing on my end, I will say. Tyler Hero deserves a little bit of a shout out for sure there.
Yeah,
He
I
definitely could
think
have made
that
it in.
his position also gets lost a little bit, like a lot of these shooting guard, point guard type players. I think that up until this year, he probably played more as a shooting guard, and this year took more of a point guard level role. He had almost 6 assists this year, and was just handling the ball more consistently. But he was more catch and shoot off the dribble, or just like it wasn't his role to really like handle the ball. So I can see how that gets lost a little bit too. But makes an All-Star team, was like the best player on that Heat team this year. So, and as a Heat fan, I maybe wanted to just include him at the back.
No, I'm glad you checked it. I'm glad you checked it. He deserves to be there. I mean, I got some guys I'm looking at here that he could potentially have jumped over. So,
yeah,
like no respect. Tyler Hero needed to be on that, at least on the honorable mentions list. So I'm glad I just added him. I got him written down.
Yeah, I like the highest I would see him up is like past Jamal Murray, but I also think that like Jamal Murray and John Morant at the back of that list are probably interchangeable. He could maybe fit into the very back of that list. LaMelo's averaging very good numbers, but on the honorable mentions part of it, very good numbers, but on a very bad team. And I mean,
I just didn't know if I haven't seen LaMelo Ball play any meaningful basketball. I just don't know how I could put him above somebody like Jamal Murray. You know,
yeah,
like I get it. Jamal Murray out a lot, and he's playing with Jokic. Shoot, that helps, right? But just no meaningful basketball, like whatsoever, like at all. Not like a single game. Nah.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that maybe he fits into like the 9, 10 spot of your list, but I think that it's pretty accurate. Jamal Murray, I think that he can maybe slide off this list for him, but like it's not a huge deal in my opinion. I think the rest of it is pretty solid. Like SGA, like he's an MVP. There's like you have to put him at the number 1 point guard in the league at this point. Luca, like he's doing his thing. He's going to be averaging a 30 point, like 8 and 8 for the rest of his career. It feels like so.
Yeah, even the fat version of him is really good, really dynamic. He had to be too. Can't forget about the Dallas run last year, even though it feels like an eternity ago. So I felt like he deserved the respect of too. But yeah, go on. I'll just add my
I think that
little comment.
the real like probably portion of this is like the 4-5 slot between Halliburton and Brunson, and I think that they're probably accurately slotted at this point just relative to where this playoff series is. I think that the teams around them, like maybe not in depth, are the same amount of talent because I think this Pacers team goes a little bit deeper. But based off starting fives, like that Knicks starting five is really really good, and Halliburton has stepped up to a different level where in the games and the moments that they've needed him, he's stepped up. And I mean, Brunson won clutch player of the year, but like he's done what he has had to do to get this team a 3-1 lead and then a 3-2 lead. So if he can close out the series, I think that's probably the defining factor on who's the 4-5 part of that list. And it's probably flippable at any point in the series, but I think 1, 2, 3 are pretty solidified at this point, and then from down below, you can make your arguments wherever.
Yeah, well, yeah, 1, 2, 3. Curry at 3, just for a bit of a reminder. I definitely just felt like he deserved some respect there as well. Obviously, the Warriors didn't really have a year like they wanted to after they acquired Jimmy Butler, but it maybe had to do with injury. Injury is what's making him slip a little bit, and he's getting up there in age. So definitely he's on watch to potentially get jumped, but I definitely don't. I still think there's a little bit of a distance there between like him and Halliburton and Brunson and Donovan Mitchell at 6. Yeah, I think if Halliburton leads his team as the best player on the team over Jalen Brunson's team 2 straight years, I know Brunson was dealing with like some of the injuries last year. If it goes on for 2 straight years, I got to recognize Halliburton. I got to say that that's what it is. If Brunson comes back from 3-1, he's jumping like he's up there and he's number 4. He's got a finals appearance. The whole conversation is different. And then with Donovan Mitchell, I looked at it and I was like, Cavs won 60 plus games out in the second round. I know they dealt with injuries, but I kind of have a question about. I feel like Donovan Mitchell's like good late, and he really showed up in that series. But anytime I feel a question about what would have happened if I had inserted like Halliburton or Brunson on the Cavs, that's when I know that I need to put them above. Because I have a question about like, I don't know if they would have changed the outcome or if you just simply would have switched teams and it would have mattered, because I just think basketball's too complex, as much as it doesn't feel like a team game, it still is. But if I have a question or I hesitate a little bit about the outcome or think it would have been closer the other way around, maybe they don't actually change the outcome, but the amount of games they lose by is less, then that makes me want to put Halliburton and Brunson above Donovan Mitchell. But
yeah,
he had a great year. This is probably a career year in my opinion.
Yeah, especially because the two guys that you have above him are battling for a chance to go to the finals while he's like currently sitting at home, especially with a team that looks so dominant during the regular season. So, I mean, I think that at any moment these like rankings are subject to change. I think the list looks like pretty spot on for now. I think that I feel like all NBA and like all star like appearances like during the season are also like a good gauge like wherever everyone sits at. And at this point, like we've covered most like the all stars and the all NBA like players. So I mean, it's a little like it's subject to change just based off like how you feel. Or I think it's very subjective, but I think in general, like you can't really argue that these are probably the top like 8 to like 12 like point guards in the league right now.
That was a nice little wrapped a little bow on it. All right. Anything that is on your mind that you've been seeing? College football playoffs, change their format, anything going on in the sports world and the sports mind of yours that you want to get off your chest before we get out of here?
Yeah, college football 26 looks like the exact same game as college football 25.
Whoa.
Yeah, unfortunately for everybody who is expecting a massive difference, these sports games can't improve drastically over the course of a year, especially when they revamped a whole like decade worth of things in the last edition of something. Everybody's gonna start hating on college football in the next 2 years and saying that it's just the same game, and it's like happened with Madden, it's happened with 2K at this point. There's only so much you can do with a basketball or football or any type of sports like game. There's only so much level of it can improve from year to year. So when this game ends up being like eerily similar to college football 25 and everyone's complaining, don't be surprised.
I think it's the game modes kind of thing. I think it's the ability, some of the customization that I've seen that they've been able to give. Like you have a trophy room now. No, I mean it's so serious. Well, I've tapped in, bro. Like I'm
Yeah.
slightly tapped in, but like some of those changes like were necessary. I think that college football 26. I think there's a real argument for 27 to be like, hey, everybody slow down. Like let's not praise them for doing everything at the bare minimum. But I feel like 26 is going to look very close to the game that like 25 was like supposed to bring. It was always like this game has been in development for so long. It needs to, we want to have everything back and a little bit more. And I think we got like a good chunk of the stuff back and a couple extra things, but we didn't get everything. And then we didn't get that little bit more. I think 26 is that little bit more and everything back like Road to Glory and stuff like that. So I think it'll look good. But yeah, I think 27, then we start like saying like, hey, look, pump the brakes. Let's look at the gameplay. Let's see if they fix some of this stuff, not praise them at every, point that they move. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it can only change so much.
Yeah.
I didn't really have anything on my mind, to be honest with you.
Bruh. Okay. All right. Well, this has been another edition of the Big Little Podcast for Patrick Previty. Oh, I was joking.
Oh, I thought you were going to end it.
I mean, I could.
All right, whatever, man. Okay, what's been on my mind lately? Let me say this.
Oh, we're going down this road now.
Oh, everybody comparing 2012 OKC to 2025 OKC. I think 2012 OKC clears. I'm not gonna lie, but I think it's a close series. That went against each other, but I think it would be a good series. I think 2012 wins in 6. Also, I saw Jeff Teague say that he thinks that the 2014-2015 Hawks would have beaten the 2025 Oklahoma City Thunder. And like, let me say that 2014-2015 Hawks team was the epitome of a regular season team. And that's the reason it gets brought up every single year. And that should be noted. They were also healthy and they still lost to
he said they dominate this OKC team.
Huh?
He said they dominate this OKC team.
He said they'd win. He said SGA would, be able to get a little bit, but he wouldn't,
Al Horford dominating in the paint.
Huh? Dude, Al Horford, people forget. Like, Al Horford used to not be like that rough and tough guy down in the middle, like what he ended up being for like the Celtics. I feel when they had those young, like, what do you mean? Oh, okay. Like with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, like when they were younger, like Al Horford was there. And like, I mean, LeBron would dunk on him twice a game, but like he still feel like that, like that, like dominant force. But like he was not that with the Atlanta Hawks, like whatsoever. Huh?
Nothing.
Oh man.
That dominant force, right?
Yo. All right, man. Hey, this has been the Big Little Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That's Andrew Greig. See you next time.